So today I'm speaking about radical generosity. It is the final day, and next week, of course, we've got our big celebration service. But I want to start off by just playing a little clip of a lady called Joyce, who was 92 years old. And Scotty out at Plains campus came across her. She was instrumental in praying for the building, which is now our beach campus. It used to be Brighton Christian Fellowship originally, and they were looking for a building. She'll tell the story. And she, with others, this was 40 years ago, would get up each morning at 5 o'clock and they'd march around the building. They needed $1 million, which was a lot of money in those days. A lot of people's houses are worth that these days, but that was an enormous amount of money in those days. And so let's just very quickly hear the story. This is Joyce, 92 years old.
I attended the South Brighton Church in the Scout Hall in South Brighton.
Yeah.
With Greg and his wife, and we...
Was it Grant Brewster?
Grant Brewster, it was at Grant Brewster and his wife, and I know her well, but never mind. Anyway, and his wife. And he told us that we had to be evicted from this building and we had to get a building of our own because there was no point in renting another one. So he said, I found a building that we can use, and he said it's this supermarket in New Brighton, and they want $1 million.
When was this?
I was in the time state, but going back about 40 years.
Yep.
Might even be more.
And $1 million was a lot of money back then?
It was a whale of a lot of money.
A whale of a lot of money.
And we all sort of went, what is that for us to do? We said, pray and pray and pray. And he said, so we said, okay, what do we do? Well, we said, but do this. We ran at 5 o'clock every morning for about 3 or 4 months. And we assaulted heaven. We didn't just pray. In tongues, we marched around and we did war.
Wow.
And we wanted $1 million because otherwise we had to sit out in the cloth hole. We had nowhere to go. So anyway, we prayed and prayed and prayed. They kept on and on. Every day we would go and pray. And then to finish on the last day we prayed, he said, right, he said, we've got our $1 million. Wow. He was very,
Praise
very good at raising money.
Yeah.
And we got our $1 million. But he said we couldn't have done it without that prayer. And all of us felt, you should have seen us. We didn't have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning anymore. But of course I wasn't 90 then.
Yeah.
And it was
just a spring chicken back then.
But it was really, really good. And when they said Grace was in that building, I felt good because we had to redo it all.
Yeah.
Refurnish it, take the whole thing out. I supplied all the plants, all lead gloves.
Wow,
so,
really?
No, they were all. And so it was absolutely amazing. The artificial plants I supplied all, and we just got cracking. And we got it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Bless you. So we are enjoying the fruit of your prayers 40 years ago for a building that our church community now inhabits.
Yeah, well, this is it. And I mean, there wasn't a lot of us. There would be 7 or 8 of us.
7 or 8 of you praying every day?
Yeah, every day.
Yeah. At what time?
5 o'clock
in the morning.
It was not 10 when you alone got there.
I bet he wasn't. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I know it's going to encourage so many people.
Isn't that awesome? 40 years ago, dear Joyce, who is now 92 years old. Well, we're doing a building project as well. And we, as you know, don't fit very well into this building here. And we don't actually own it either. So we have been probably saving money for about the last 15 years. And this is the church that we're going to start building actually very, very soon. We're going to start demolishing the current building in October, and then when we get to about April, we're going to start building the new one, which will be great. Now, we're hoping that this time we can raise $5 million, and that's a bit more than the $1 million that Joyce was talking about, but we don't want to have to borrow too much money, and so that's the thing. We don't want to be putting all the money into interest, so that's what we believe in God for. And you know, the big thing about this is we believe that God's called us to do it. That this is his vision. He's talking to us and saying, I want you to make more room. And so we're inviting you today, later on and in the coming week, to be part of that miracle. But I don't want to focus on that today. What I want to focus on is the vision we have as a church. Because this isn't about a building. It's not about bricks and mortar. It is actually about the vision for lost people. I have just been, as you probably gathered from our prayers today, I've been in the hospital a number of times this week and into high dependency units and into intensive care. And 1 or 2 people have been just on the edge of life and death. And wives have asked me to come up and give encouragement about what heaven is like. When you're in hospital and you're hooked up to things and you're struggling to breathe, nothing else much matters about you, about what's going to happen and your family around you. And it makes me realize that, when everything is stripped away, all we have is whatever decisions we make for Jesus. I came to Christchurch in 1986. I was a very lost and lonely young man and sort of just a bit without purpose. And I went along to a little church, but it was an encounter with Jesus that totally and radically changed the whole course of my life. And I have always looked at the world differently since then because Jesus came into my heart, because I encountered him, I realized that is what life's about. And I said to God at that time, when I encountered him in such a powerful way, when I experienced his love in such an incredible way, I said to him, Lord, I will spend the rest of my life helping to rescue lost people, helping people to encounter you. And a few years down the track from that, I became a youth pastor and just loved helping to win people to Jesus. And then as we started getting ready to plant this church, I still vividly remember, I've told you this before, we hired out a little church hall. We spent the day praying, God giving us vision, and every single member of our team was weeping over the lost people of Canterbury and the surrounding areas. Just weeping and saying, God, use us in some way to win lost people. And God just called to us. He just started opening the doors to be able to plant this church. And it was very funny because in the process at that exact time that we were praying for lost people, people started having visions of us having a building and people coming in, but the building was too small. This is 28 years ago. Our team were having these visions. The building will be too small, and we saw pictures of people queuing up outside and they couldn't get in because the building was too small. And when we started, many of you will remember, we had an issue where we just couldn't fit people in, and we had the little clicker. We could get to a certain number, then we had to turn away sometimes about 100 people who were coming along. So we planted out churches, but we've kept growing again, which is a wonderful problem to have, isn't it? That people want to come to know Jesus. But the thing is, our mission has always been about rescuing lost people. It's never been about building a big church. It's never been about having things that are flash. It is trying to capture what the vision of Jesus is. And the Bible clearly says from Genesis to Revelation that the mission of Jesus is to find lost people. Jesus said that about himself in Luke chapter 19, verse 10, when he said, the Son of Man came to seek and save those who were lost. And we see that the mission of the Bible all the way through has always been that thing, saving lost people. Probably the most well-known verse in the Bible, John 3:16 and 17, said, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. And this is the key bit. But God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. That was the mission of Jesus. God saw that there were millions of people perishing, millions of people going into a Christless eternity, millions of people in distress. So he sent his one and only Son to die for them, not to condemn them, but so that he would rescue them and bring them to himself. Over and over in the teachings of Jesus, we just see more and more signs of God's heart for the lost. And one of my favorites, which I've said over and over, is the story of the shepherd that has the sheep, and he has 99, but one is lost. And I've got this little picture up on my office, and I have it as a centering thing that I remember what it's all about. It's just Jesus looking for that little lost lamb. That the shepherd, which is Jesus, is happy to leave the 99 because every one is important, and he goes after that lost lamb. But one of the things is, and this is an important thing to know, it's great to know that Jesus cares about the lost, But the most important thing is that Jesus invites us to come and get involved in looking for lost people. And that's the thing often that the church doesn't get. We love to feel that we're the lost lamb. We love to feel that God's come and rescued us. But often we never take the step of saying, Jesus, I will join you in looking for lost people. But Jesus invites every one of us. He says, I want you, if you love me, if you care about me, if you want to worship me, I want you to help me look for lost people. And we see this when Jesus is wandering down by the beach, and he sees two fishermen, Simon and Andrew, and he calls out to them. He says, come and follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. So here, guys, this was their business, fishing for fish. And Jesus says, I want you to leave your business. I want you to leave your livelihood. They actually left their families as well. He said, come and follow me. You'll still be fisher people, but you will be fishing for people instead of fish. So he laid it out. That was the fine print right at the very beginning. You're not going to be focused on just getting fish. I'm going to teach you how to come and find lost people. And so Jesus taught them for 3 years how to look for lost people. And then when he was on the cross, he sent them out. He said, go into all the world. And he said, look for lost people and teach them how to be disciples. And what did they do? Well, the disciples, they went out and they planted churches. And it's incredible for the days that they were in 2,000 years ago. There's a map of the churches that were planted by the disciples. And we know them by the books of the New Testament. Churches in Rome and Corinth and Galatia and Philippi and Colossae and Thessalonica and Ephesus and Laodicea and Smyrna and Pergamum, Antioch, Thyatira, a whole bunch. They just went out and they planted churches because that was always what God wanted, that there would be churches everywhere, because a church is an embassy where God's people are, where people can come and find salvation. When we go out and we win the lost, we bring them back in so that they can get discipled. And friends, 2 centuries later, over 2 centuries later, our mission has to be exactly the same. We are called by Jesus to go and seek and save the lost. Like the early disciples, we go out and we plant churches, and we want to have one in every town, every city, every suburb. I mean, we'd love to have one in every corner, because there are hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people in our nation that don't know Jesus. And the mission to keep building churches is because there are so many lost and so many poor, and that's what God's told us to do. But friends, you know what? So many people have actually lost the vision of reaching lost people. Church just becomes a bit of a social club where we get together and we just know our friends. And, you know, just especially in our age, there's more of a focus on me and my personal relationship with Jesus. And that's a very important thing, but it's just a starting block. We start off with us and our personal relationship with Jesus, but then the next step is joining Jesus in his mission. And so it's not just about finding a nice church where we have nice cookies and nice coffee and a place where we bring all our kids. That's a great thing to start, but the next thing is making room for more people to come and find Jesus as well. One of my great heroes is a man called William Booth. He and his wife, Catherine, started the Salvation Army. And he was a very fine man, and he had an incredible passion for lost people and the poor. And you'll see his legacy around today with the Salvation Army. But, he was very disturbed that Christians in the church of his time, and not much has changed, were more interested in their own well-being than they were about all the poor people that were around and all the lost people that were around. One day he had this incredible vision. He had a vision of a raging sea and hundreds of thousands of people lost in the sea. They were drowning, and it didn't look like much was going on to help them. But in the middle, there was a big rock with a platform on it, and some people had managed to get onto it. And at one point in the vision, he saw Jesus come down from heaven and leap into the sea and start rescuing people and bring them to the rock. And Jesus was crying out, come in and help me rescue these people. But what William Booth said he saw as he looked at the vision is there were only 1 or 2 on the rock that actually made any effort to help those who were drowning in the sea. Others were just involved in their everyday life. And I'll just read out to you some of the writings he wrote about this vision. In that ocean, I thought I saw myriads of poor human beings plunging and floating, shouting and shrieking, cursing and struggling and drowning. And as they cursed and screamed, they rose and shrieked again, and then some sank to rise no more. On looking more closely, I found a number of those who'd been rescued industriously working and scheming by ladders, ropes, boats, and other means more effective to deliver the poor strugglers out of the sea. Here and there were some who actually jumped into the water, regardless of the consequences, in their passion to rescue the perishing. But what puzzled me most was the fact that though all of them had been rescued at one time or another from the ocean, nearly everyone seemed to have forgotten all about it. Anyway, it seemed the memory of its darkness and danger no longer troubled them at all. And what seemed equally strange and perplexing to me was that these people did not even seem to care about the people perishing, the poor perishing ones who were struggling and drowning right before their very eyes. Many of them were their own husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, and even their own children. Now, this astonishing unconcern could not have been the result of ignorance or lack of knowledge, because they lived right here in full sight of it and even talked about it sometimes. Some of them were absorbed day and night in trading and business in order to make gain, storing up their savings in boxes, safes, and the like. Many spent their time in amusing themselves with growing flowers on the side of the rock, others in painting pieces of cloth or in playing music, or in dressing themselves up in different styles and walking about to be admired. Some occupied themselves chiefly in eating and drinking, but only a very few of them seemed to make it their business to get the people out of the sea. Friends, Jesus has a mission for every one of us, and that is that after we've been saved, after we get on that rock, that we spend at least some of our time and finances and energies and gifts to be able to help those who are still in the sea. I asked Tanya, who's one of our graphic artists, to do some pictures of what I visualized our cities are like. And so the first picture is of the sea, and the sea is just of thousands and thousands and thousands of people are there in the sea needing to be rescued. These are the lost, the poor, the lonely, the people that don't know Jesus, the people that Jesus cares about. How do we rescue them? Well, sometimes we can sort of try and do it by ourselves in our own effort, and the next one shows a little kayak that comes up, and it's great that you've got something. You can tow one or two people away with the kayak. That's great. But wouldn't it be good to have a slightly bigger boat? And so the next one is a slightly bigger boat. We've got a bigger boat coming along there to be able to help get some of those people out. But you know what? Ultimately, we need lots of boats, and we need some big boats as well. You can see where I'm going with this. So imagine having a huge, big rescue ship. Imagine having one that's got lots of boats that you can send them out. It's not just about the big boat. It's about boats of every size. But if there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people there, a couple of kayaks are not going to do it. A few dinghies are not going to do it. A few launches are not going to do it. You need some massive ships as well to come along to do the support. And look, it doesn't matter how many boats you send out there, because there's always going to be more people. And I have said for many, many years that church, if we're going to call ourselves a ship, we are not a cruise ship. My wife likes this picture of the cruise ship. She said, actually, I quite like the idea of being a cruise ship. But we're not a cruise ship. We are a rescue ship. That's what the church is all about. And everybody who is on the rescue ship has got a task, and that mission is to rescue people. If you are on a cruise ship, if you're on a luxury liner, you get served and you get all your needs met, and it's a great place to bring your kids. And many churches can be just like cruise liners. It can be like a luxury place where you just come on and you have a great time. And it's just a wonderful place to be. And we do want our rescue ship to be a wonderful place, but it's a reminder that we have a task. You know, during this time, I get people saying to me, oh, but we don't want to be a mega church. I've had that come out so many times. And I'm not quite sure, what the fear is about being, we don't want to have a mega ship rescue place. Really? Do we want something big? It depends what the purpose is. If it's a cruise ship, sure, we don't want to invest money in a cruise ship. But if it's a rescue ship, don't we want the biggest one we've got? If you've got 20 people stuck on the mountain, do you want a tiny helicopter to come and pick you up, or do you want a big helicopter to pick you up? If there is a massive earthquake in a city, do you want a tiny wee hospital, or do you want a massive hospital? Or ideally lots and lots of hospitals. It depends what the purpose is. And so when people say, oh, it costs a lot of money. I've heard people say, why don't we just give all this money to the poor? And in many ways, I think that would be like going out there in your kayak and say, who wants $1,000? Who wants $1,000? Who wants $1,000? You look after the poor, you look after the drowning by investing in boats that can come and rescue them. If we really believe that Jesus is the answer to the world, if we really believe that Jesus is the one that saves, we will invest in what he invests in, which is the church, what he believes in, which is the bride of Christ. You're in a rescue ship right now, and somebody in the past has invested in that. And the question today is, will you help to invest in a ship that's larger for other people to come on board as well? So our hope this time for this season is 4 things. We're hoping that everyone in our rescue ship, our church, these will come up on the screen, we're hoping that everybody would help us in this season. We're hoping that people would give something rather than nothing, even 10 cents. And I say 10 cents because it's such a ridiculously small figure that hopefully people would say, oh my goodness, well, I could give 10 cents. I had a chat to a lady last week in one of the other campuses, and she said, well, I'd really, really love to give, but my husband's a non-Christian, we're building a house. I said, that's fine. Could you give 10 cents? And she laughed. She said, of course I could give 10 cents. She said, I could give more than that. I said, great. Could you give 50 cents? She laughed again. She said, yes, I can give 50 cents. I said, just give something rather than nothing. Doesn't have to be massive. Doesn't need to detour your whole building project. I said, talk to your non-Christian husband and say to him, what could we agree on that we could both be cheerful about? And she said, I could do that. And honestly, it's better to give something rather than nothing. Better to do something small than say, I'm not going to invest anything in the next generation. And then give what's radically generous in your context. Some people could possibly, afford to give millions. Some people might be able to just give cents. For even a few dollars might be difficult. But God sees the heart, and he says, you know what? In your context and your situation with your commitments, that is generous. And above all, give with a cheerful heart. We don't want to take a cent from anyone that's not given cheerfully. If you can give 10 cents and be cheerful about that, we're happy. If 11 cents would cause you real upset and make you grumpy, then just go back down to 10. But it is better. There is something spiritual that is broken through when people give something rather than nothing. Because what we're doing is we're putting something into the hands of God to do a miracle with. And we know the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus insisted that they be part of the miracle. He could have just gone kapow and everyone would have been fed. But he said, what do you have? And they had virtually nothing. But he said, that's okay, just give me what you have. And they gave something small and he did a miracle. There's a principle in that. Just give the little bit that you have. I've got some chairs up the front. I showed this to our staff. And this sort of represents people that come along to our church. You can imagine them chairs in a church, or you can imagine them chairs on a rescue boat. We have some chairs in our church that are for guests. And we hope that everybody will come in and that they will feel that they are welcome. They don't have to pay a cent. They don't need to give anything. They will have worship. They'll have a service. They'll have coffee. They'll have all sorts of wonderful things going on. They can have their kids looked after for free. We're not going to, bring out the FPOS and say, you've got to give us money when you come in and out. Everybody is welcome to come for free. but somebody's paid for the chair. This represents all the lights, which have just gone a bit brighter. It represents the insurance we pay. It represents all the other things, which are huge for every person that comes along. After a while that you become, maybe you come for 15 years, we might say to you, how would you feel about helping pay for your chair? Just the expenses that there are for you coming along. You don't have to. We're not going to ask you. There's not going to check. But how would you feel of moving from the place of being a guest, or even if you're on a boat, to being the crew? Could you help us out? Maybe help us do some stuff. But could you help us with some of the expenses of what it costs to have you here, so that we're just not paying for huge numbers of guests all the time? Would you shift from that chair to this chair? And so that's where we get people who become regular givers. Now, the last chair is what we're talking about in this series. This is when we say you've been family for a while, you are paying or helping to pay for your chair. How would you feel about paying for some chairs for some other people? How would you feel about not just paying for your own chair? How would you feel about paying for guest chairs? How many guest chairs could you actually pay for? You know, it's funny, as we've done these life group series videos, it's been really interesting that a lot of especially the smaller churches have said, would you buy a chair for the church? And 2 or 3 of the churches have said people not only bought a chair for themselves and their family, they bought chairs for others. And in 2 of the churches, they said people from the community came in and bought chairs as well. One man who's an atheist who doesn't even go to church in Warkworth came and gave $100,000 to their building, saying, I want to help contribute because you're doing a great job. But what we're trying to do is we're saying at some stage, we would love to think that you're not just the crew, but you could actually be radically generous and say, it's not just about me and my family, but it is about all the people who are going to come after us. And even when I'm gone, I want to make sure that there's a place, that there are chairs for others. And friends, this is exactly what our building's about. It is about making room for others to come and know Jesus as well. We have grown so big in this campus here that we've run out of room. And as I said, we don't even own this building, but it's not just that. We could continue to squash, but there are hundreds of thousands of people that we want to bring in, and there's just not room for them to come in. We could fit the odd 1 and 2 today. There's a few chairs, but ultimately, as revival comes, people are wanting to come into our services. Most of our campuses are jam-packed full. And we're saying we want hundreds more spaces. Who will help us to buy those extra chairs or help us to provide for a bigger boat? You know, it's funny, sometimes when we bring these things up, people get offended about the whole giving thing, and they come up with all these reasons why they don't like it. But when you put it in terms of a rescue ship, are you really offended that the rescue ship that you've been rescued on, which is the body of Christ, are you offended about helping buy ships that will actually rescue other people? Is that an offensive thought that we would do that? It's sort of hard to imagine that people wouldn't want to give something to others who are wanting to come in. And, you know, I can understand with people having lots of commitments. I've talked to so many people and say, I've got commitments in this and commitments in that. I totally understand that. But my big thing is, have you got so many commitments you couldn't give 10 cents towards a chair for somebody else? See, even 10 cents plants a seed, and it gives Jesus the opportunity to do a miracle. In a few moments, we're going to have all of our kids coming in. And one of the things that just delights me about the children is that they have been incredibly generous. And there have been some little life groups going on where kids have actually got their money together, their pocket money together. And people have been doing little odd jobs so that they can contribute something. Sometimes the little kids show us up. And then there's the bake sale, $900 from this campus and the other campus. I think all up, it was just under $2,000 that the kids raised. Once again, it doesn't go necessarily very far, but what does it do in their hearts? that they've given something, that when that building is up, they're able to see, I remember we made cakes for that. I helped Mum. I watched my little grandson last week as they're living in our house, with their little hands. They were making little chocolate chip cookies, and they're getting the wee chocolate chips and plugging them in. I thought, just as well, these things have been cooked well. And I said, what are you cooking these for? And they both said, one's 6 and one's 4. We're cooking them for for our new church, they said. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? Here's wee kids that get the idea that all of us together are building something for the next generation. We're building something for the lost people of Christchurch. When we started our church, Lizzie and I really prayed. We got it firmly on our hearts that we wanted to have a church that would reach lost people. And we had a group of friends and we said, we're going to invest our time, our talents, our money. We're going to actually give up our lives. Sounds very grand. I don't mean it to be like that, but we're actually committing our lives to the mission of Jesus to win lost people. Will you join us? And at that stage, about 20 or 30 people came and joined us, and they were incredibly generous and gave up their time, talents, finances, abilities to start our church. 27 years later, we're on the same mission. We've got 6 boats now, and we need another one. We need a bigger one. And all along the way, it's been a journey of faith. It's been a journey of miracles. And all the time when we've seen the financial costs, we think, oh my goodness, how on earth are we going to do this? And God has always moved on the hearts of people to be generous. Never ceases to amaze me. And so now we've got this situation that God has brought us into. We've got a building that we know is going to help us to get into the next stage. It's going to be a blessing for the city. It's going to be a place that we can raise up another generation. It's going to be a hub that we can use for all of our different campuses and things, but it costs a lot of money. So again, 27 years later, we come to our people and say, will you help us get another rescue ship? We do this because we love Jesus and to worship him and to make sacrifices to win the lost people that he loves. We as a couple, Lizzie and I, are giving as much as we think we can give to this thing. And the reason is that so lost people will be saved. And we're asking if you would join us today in doing that. Would you join us in giving radically generously, but even a tiny bit if that's all you can do, to be able to give to this rescue ship so that more people can come to know Jesus?